Houston, I'm ready for the event.
Hey, sounds good, Andre. ESA, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Euronews. How do you hear me?
Euronews, this is International Space Station. I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, Andre. As you know, we will be doing this interview in two parts. The second part is a series of scientific questions. After the first set of questions, I will say thank you and goodbye, and we'll pass directly into the second questions, okay? So don't be surprised if you hear me say thank you and goodbye, okay? We're going to go in just a couple of seconds.
Copy.
Copy. Copy. Okay, Andre, here we go. Hey, Andre, here we go. Hey, Andre, here we go. The station has been continually occupied for nearly 12 years now, and Europe has had a big role in that adventure. Joining us now, more than 330 kilometers above the Earth, is European crew member Andre Kuipers. Andre, thanks for being with us. You'll be leaving the ISS soon. How are you feeling about going home? I imagine there's a real mix of emotions. Real mix of emotions. Real mix of emotions.
Yes, that's correct. Of course, I like to go home to see the children and the family and smell the fresh air and hear some birds, for example. But it's also my home here. I've been living here for half a year. I have fantastic views. The floating is great. So it's a double feeling also because, yeah, I know that I won't be coming back here probably. So it's mixed feelings indeed.
Is there a feeling of mission accomplished among those emotions? Because you had some very specific scientific goals to achieve. What were they?
Yes, I would say that this mission accomplished. I've been training a very long time for this and looking forward to do all the experiments. I trained a lot, for example, at ESA for the Columbus module, the European lab. And I've been working with every single rack in that lab. And that was a very, very good feeling. So that all the training was put into use. So in that sense, absolutely mission accomplished.
Apart from the scientific work, how did you put in your time? Talk us through a typical day on board the ISS.
Yeah, well, we have the working day, which starts with a daily planning conference. So we talk through the day. Then we start our experiments or maintenance work or repairs. So that means we spread out over the station, and some people might be working in a Japanese module, other in the US lab or in the Russian segment. So we start our tasks. We do this together with the ground, of course. We talk with Houston, we talk with Huntsville, we talk with Tsukuba in Japan, with Munich, the European Flight Control Center. And of course sometimes with SUP in Moscow. So with all these people together, we do the tasks set for that day. And on top of that, we have to stay in condition, so in a good physical condition. That means that every day we do a lot of sports. So of course, like everybody else, we have to eat. So we have our meals in between, and at the end of the day, we finish the day again with a planning conference to talk through the day, fixing open ends, and start the planning for the next day. And then we have some free time to do our things like calling home, for example, watching a movie, or of course watching out of the window and taking pictures.
Well, it seems a fascinating, unimaginable existence. A fascinating, unimaginable existence. A fascinating, unimaginable existence. Tell us about those, if you would. Tell us about those, if you would.
I think you have to repeat the question because I hear 3 echoes here at the moment. So I didn't get the question.
Okay. It seems a fascinating, unimaginable existence. Very few people get to experience it, but there must be lows as well as highs. Tell us about those, if you would.
Yes, that's true. I mean, it's fantastic to float, for example. That's a very nice feeling, but it also means that that everything else floats. So if you're working with certain experiments, you might easily lose things because normally things drop down, but in space it can float everywhere. So if you have an object like this is a big object, a torch. But if I don't watch it for a while, even this one I might not find back easily because it goes somewhere that I don't look. It's all three-dimensional. So that is an issue that we have. We have to be very careful with all the items we work on. What is another other aspect is that we're living in a glass house. So everything we do is watched from the ground. So we're always of course very concentrated, but that is a certain aspect that there's always people looking over your shoulder, helping you, but you're always in a glass house, and in that sense, it's nice also that we have of course our free time, our private quarters, so we compensate for that.
1, 2. This was your second mission. Your first was in 2004. How have things changed on the ISS since then, and will this be your last mission? You have indicated it may be your last mission.
Yes, 2004 was my first flight. It was a short flight of 11 days, and the station was maybe half as big as it is now. So it's a huge station now. We are also with 6 people on board, and we have some features that I didn't have before, like the cupola, which you can see the Earth 360 degrees. So that's a very nice feature, and it will probably be my last flight. If ESA would ask me to fly again, I would absolutely do that because it's very interesting and very beautiful. But there are new astronauts, and I guess that when it's my turn again, I will already be retired. But you never know.
Well, Andre, we wish you a safe journey home. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Goodbye.
It was a pleasure.
Can you give us a few examples of how the science you did during your mission can have a benefit to us on Earth?
Yeah, one of the nice things of being an astronaut is that you do science in a lot of different fields. So it could be that one morning I do, for example, a biology experiment, working with cells. We have a special device where I worked on called the Cubic, and we did an experiment called ROALT, and I worked on immune system. So these kind of results can be used on ground to get more knowledge and applications. For example, to cure problems with the human immune system, because we have a different situation here in space where bacteria grow better and the human immune system is a bit decreased. Then in the afternoon I might be doing a technology experiment. Or a fluid physics experiment. So we have all kind of different ones that, and the applications of those experiments can be found in industrial processes, for example, or new materials, or new treatment for example, osteoporosis. We have an experiment called ADOS, which looks at the bone loss that astronauts astronauts have much faster than people on Earth. And this is important because a big part of the population is getting in the old age region with all the problems for bone loss. So the research that we do up here is done by teams on the ground who do their research there. And here they have they can do specific research because of the fact that we don't have weight here. So those aspects are being tested here and have their applications on the ground.
A lot of the science is about the human body. Are you then the guinea pig for these experiments?
Yes, absolutely. For a lot of experiments, we work with payloads. But for human experiments, human physiology experiments, we are the payload. So we are the guinea pigs. That means that we have ECG, EEG, blood pressure measurements. We give blood samples. We do ultrasound scans of organs and blood vessels, and even of our eyes. So we are indeed the guinea pigs, and we are operator subject. So one day I do an ultrasound scan on a colleague, and the next day he does it on me, or we take blood samples. So yes, we are the guinea pigs.
The Promise mission happened during a period of high solar radiation. Did you have any way of monitoring this?
Yes, absolutely. We have very interesting experiments running. Experiment called Althea, but also Dosis 3D. And we're measuring all over the space station. We're measuring the radiation levels. So radiation is an interesting topic. We are not protected by the atmosphere here. And without even equipment, we can see clearly that there was an active sun. Well, first of all, sometimes you see flashes. That means that radioactive particles hit the back of your eye, your retina, and you see that as a flash. So that is something we can see. But we also saw a fantastic phenomenon, and that is the northern and southern lights, but then from space. And it was very active during this flight. So that was a beautiful thing to see. But that is something caused by radiation from the sun. So we measure it with all kinds of equipment, and we can even see it with our own eyes.
And finally, Andre, a question for one of our science programs. Can you give us an example of an experiment which could not be done here on Earth?
Well, actually, it's a nice question. There's an experiment with the Earth in that sense. So we have an experiment called GeoFlow. And GeoFlow is mimicking the whole Earth, so the Earth in a box. So we have an experiment with fluids, and it's a sphere, and then a fluid mantle, and then again a sphere around it. So this is mimicking the situation of the Earth with the core, with the mantle, and it gives us information on how, for example, earthquakes are caused, and what the physics are, what's happening inside the Earth, and that we simulate with this experiment in a fluid science lab that we have in the Columbus lab from ESA, and it's a very intriguing experiment, GeoFlow.
Okay, Andre, can you tell us something about vessel IED?
Besides all the biological, fluid physics, human physiology experiments, we also have technology experiments. So we're testing out new technologies, and one of those experiments is vessel ID. So these are it's a system that tracks ships all over the world, which is a very interesting way for the shipping industry to know where all the ships are. And this is a technology that is tested here from the space station. So also in that field we do a lot of innovative new things.
Satellites have changed the way we can experience big events like the Olympics. Do you have any standout memories of watching a particular event that was possible because of satellites?
Can you repeat the question? It came a bit through a bit broken.
This is a question for one of our science programs. Satellites have changed the way we experience big events like the Olympics, and I'm just wondering, from your own memory, do you have any standout memories of watching a particular event that was possible because of satellites?
Well, I mean, you mean telecommunications events, or I mean, satellites give us a lot of interesting possibilities. I think a big change, for example, is the GPS that everybody has now. So that is an important recent development. And concerning events, things that happen around the world we get very quickly on our television screens. So these are, if you want to talk about events, these are things that we quickly get through satellites. But I don't know if that is really the question that you had.
Andre, stand by for one final question. Chris, I couldn't hear you. Okay, Andre, final question. Why do they take the blood samples and ECGs?
One of the things that happens in space, beside the bone loss I talked about, is muscle loss. I float here. I don't use much of my muscles, and that means that you get weaker, coordination is less. But not only from the muscles of your arms and legs, but also your heart muscle. And one of the experiments we're doing is checking what the heart muscle is doing. So we have an experiment called VO2 max, for example, and a part of the experiment is also a thermolab. So what you see often is that scientists combine experiments. So one scientist is looking what the maximum oxygen uptake is and how the heart's behaving, and for that we have the ECG for example. But another experimenter from another country, in this case Denmark, they have an experiment for measuring the heat dissipation on the head and on the chest, and that is also very interesting to see how that happens in microgravity. We use interesting equipment for those kind of experiments. We have the portable pulmonary function system, which is a European device that we have in the US lab. And with that one, we go on a bike and we do maximum exercise for the VO2 max, and at the same time measure also the temperature gradient. So these are very integrated experiments that we're doing here from different scientists with the goal of getting better knowledge of how our body works, how our heart works, and maybe we have some good applications of that for patients on Earth.
Okay, Andre, we have yet another question for you. Can you give us a 1-minute summary of cubic biology?
One of the biological experiments I did is the Rowald experiment, and we did this with a device called Cubic. I used that also on my first flight. Cubic is a very interesting small payload that we can put in a rack. It's called in the EDR rack, the European Drawer rack. So we have one Cubic in that rack, and we have another one which is a standalone. And in there we have an incubator. We have a centrifuge, so we can compare the situation with samples that are under Earth conditions, gravity-wise, but for example, radiation-wise, they are in space conditions. So with this way, we have a little a mini lab on board for biological samples. And this robot experiment, for example, was looking at the immune system that we have. But we can have all kind of different biological samples in this cubic. It's a very nice device.
Well, Andre, it's been a fascinating and insightful conversation. Thank you very much for taking time to talk to us.
It's a pleasure.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
And thank you, Isa and Euronews station. We're resuming operational video and audio comm. And Andre, you've got a activity to shut down the T2. We'll need you to wait on that until we've got the wireless back up after the crystal experiment. So we'll give you a call when we're ready for that. How copy?